2, 1.
Good evening, Yorktown, and welcome to the Town Board Work Session meeting. It is January 26th, 2021. It's a snowy evening here, but we appreciate everyone tuning in. If you could all join us, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the
flag
of the United States of America,
and to the republic
for
which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If you could all please join me in a moment of silence as we continue to keep in our thoughts and prayers all those we have lost across the country and across the globe from the COVID-19 pandemic, as we pray for all of our frontliners, our first responders, our teachers, and all those who continue to perform essential services for us during this very trying time. And of course, we pray for the bravest men and women the world has ever known, serving overseas, protecting our freedoms every single day. Thank you.
Amen.
Again, I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. This is a work session meeting. I'm happy to do some introductions. Again, my name is Matt Slater. I'm town supervisor. I'm joined by Councilwoman Alice Roker, Councilman Vishnu Patel. We have Councilman Tom Diana, Councilman Ed Lachterman. We also have with us our town clerk, Diana Quast. We are also joined by Adam Rodriguez, our town attorney. I want to begin by announcing that the Underhill Farms portion of our agenda, they have canceled their presentation this evening, so they will not be presenting to the town board. I know that's a topic of great interest to many in this community, so we will be amending our agenda accordingly. And we're going to start tonight by welcoming members of our planning department, John Tegeter and Robin Steinberg. We're going to talk about the overlay district legislation that the town board has been working on in conjunction with our planning department for quite some time now. John, do you want to take it away?
Sure. So we're going to talk about the legislation. I think you guys also asked me to talk about the planning process.
Yes.
And how it relates to this law and really all our laws and all we do really. So, and in particular, what happens in the run up to actual formal application process.
Yes.
So I'm going to describe that. I'm going to describe what we do, but I'm going to go through a little short history because I think it, in context, brings you to where we are today. And there, it has evolved a little bit, and I think the items that I'll talk about, you'll find to be important to that discussion. So the process is, and can Robin share a screen?
Yeah.
And if she could put up the big flow chart, that would be helpful. So the process is, of course, there's a formal application process. It has to go through and pay attention to many laws, both local and state laws, and some federal laws as well. That's a snapshot of it. That is not everything. It is somewhat even more labyrinthian than it seems to that. And you can see at the very top left, there's pre-application meetings with staff, and that is the thing that we're going to talk about right now, which is kind of the run-up to everything that happens after a pre-preliminary application, which is when it becomes, when it goes to one of the approving boards and becomes a process, in the greatest sense of that word, which is, and it has a lot more, legal avenues to follow. So we've always had pre-application meetings with staff, if you see that one on the left.
Right.
That is embedded in our law, and it's simply when someone comes in for a subdivision or a site plan, they get the They get the advantage, but we also get the advantage of meeting with them, discussing their project, giving them a little bit of heads up as to what the first steps are and what the path will be. And it was just that. It usually was typically one meeting. Often they didn't have any plans. They just had a glimmer of a project. Sometimes they came in and they had fairly well-developed projects. But at that point, we would turn them to the pre-preliminary application, which gets them to, in this case, the planning board. It's $100, and they can now get to the next step and get some feedback from the planning board. But as you recall, and I just want to go through some of this history because I think it's important. In 2008, in the big economic downturn, the Great Recession, out in the public, there became a lot of calls to be helpful to businesses because businesses were suffering. And that really distilled itself into the town board and politics, and it became necessary for us to be more approachable to developers. So we started having greater numbers of pre-preliminary meetings if a developer or property owner wished to gain information. And that continues to this day, actually, but that was the beginning of where the pre-application meetings, which are a single meeting or maybe two meetings, became more of a venture in which we help and facilitate really developers who are seeking to gain information about particular developments that they want to put forward. In 2010, there was actually a process that was started by one of the former supervisors, Susan Siegel, in fact, that she put together a committee to look at the planning process. It was, as I recall, was called Planning Process Streamlining, and that came up with some recommendations to it. Among them was greater access to get meetings with planning department and other departments in town, and have some priority, for instance, on agenda items. So it was to help business. And businesses that are seeking information, when they look at this review process, which they are familiar with because they've done it elsewhere, it's a daunting process. And the more information that they can get easily out in front is very valuable to them, helpful. And so embarking on that from 2008,
Can I just interrupt you and ask you?
Yeah, of course.
So does that mean that you see a lot of people that may or may never come before either the planning board or the town board?
That's correct. And in fact, I would say the majority probably don't come before the planning board or the town board.
Okay.
And after that, many projects languish and never are finished. I would say it's the minority that come all the way through and gain an approval. But yes, that's exactly right, Alice.
Okay.
John, may I ask one question?
Yeah.
This is the diagram I asked 2 years ago for the student. They were studying the water, sewer, land use impact. I think this is the same presentation you have, right?
Yeah, we've had this a long time. We developed this quite a long time ago.
Yeah,
So,
because I got a copy, and I think I should have one of these copies, because when I go to the student, this is where you buy your house, but before you to buy a house, you have to go through this, and you have to see about the water source. That's why these are the students, I have mentored. Okay, thank you.
And if you can't find it, we'll be happy to give you another one.
Right.
So,
We actually hand these out.
Yeah, you
application
give
folders.
to me one copy, and I gave it to the students. Yeah,
Yeah.
Tom, I gave it to me. Yes, thank you.
John and Robin, is this on the planning board's website on the town site?
it might be.
I'm not sure.
Okay. If it's not, I think it's probably helpful to have it up there, just so
Right.
residents can understand what the process is.
Right.
Especially
When you
when it
come
out.
in and you get an application, this is in your package.
Right, but I think it's also I think one of the things that we're hoping to do tonight as well is also educate our residents, because I think there's a lot of confusion right now on on what that process is. And so, since you already give it out as part of the application, I don't think it hurts to have this on the website as well.
Right. Okay, that's fine. So when we do these meetings, when we're meeting, and they can be multiple meetings, we're meeting with the landowners or the developers, and we're talking about process. We're talking about the zoning that will be applying to their property. Any concerns related to the project could be environmental concerns, traffic concerns. It's important because every town is slightly different. Some do not see a planning board until the project is well enough developed that it is near approval. It's not like that here in Yorktown. But so every town is different, and that's why these pre-preliminary or pre-application meetings and facilitation has become important and an important aspect of the times that we're in, beginning in 2008 and really continuing to today. So, if you fast forward today, all of the above that I just spoke about is still in play, but now you have the advent of the Amazon effect. We've developed since 2008 a lot of vacancies in town. That's been on the tip of many folks' tongue. The market forces in terms of development have changed, and it now leans away from single family to apartments and workforce housing and transit-oriented development. And there's also the issue of COVID flight from urban areas. All of this has led to the town giving rise to a response which is embodied in the recent efforts of Destination Y and the overlay districts that we're talking about tonight. Now, Destination Y, that campaign was designed to attract businesses to come and fill vacancies that we may not yet know that we were going to have because of the impact of COVID and the Amazon effect. It's also to attract residents because the folks that are now situating their lives, so to speak, as the millennials, and they're a segment of the population that there's a lot of development-related efforts in the planning field. So as in 2008, we find ourselves in a situation in which the town, rightfully, I think, has determined that we need to be proactive and to pivot a little bit to manage these realities that are coming at us. As the 2008 was the Great Recession, I think this is actually bigger. I think that this is akin to the suburbanization of Yorktown that occurred in the 50s and 60s, and then right thereafter, urban renewal. You may take those together. I'm separating them, but those were big sea changes in the development scheme of Yorktown, and I think we're in one of those times. So the town board has, put forth these overlay districts. And
let's go back to the original overlay district.
Yeah, yes, I have that to talk about. Okay. So let me just give you some examples, recent examples, and then I'll get right into the overlay districts. We do talk, as I said, we talk to developers all the time. They come in, we facilitate them, we talk to them about their layout, sidewalks, what should go on projects. We also talk to them about zoning, and often it's very common that they come in and the zoning either precludes them, they need variances, their particular use or aspects of their use are not spoken for in the zoning, in our zoning code. And for instance, lately we saw IBM. We looked at IBM. We had many meetings with the IBM, helping them through what was coming to be an approval process. So they wanted to get the feeling of how the town was going to be looking at it. They told us that they had funding mechanisms that had deadlines that they had to meet. And so there was a facilitation that went on for I believe the first time we started talking to IBM was in the spring of last year. The solar law was just adopted, I believe, in the late fall. So we had been talking to them and helping them facilitate their planning and what was going onto their plan, so that when it got to that point, it was less of a review time for them, possibly, even if it's shortened by a couple of weeks, in order that they can get through and get their funding and hit all those mechanisms. And they did at one time in the summer call up and say, you know, we're losing, if we don't move on something, we're going to lose a spot in a certain funding mechanism that the state had laid out for solar. We saw Borrego solar storage up on Gomer Street, same thing. In fact, they did not fit into the zoning code. And after some fits and starts, we decided to write a law for solar energy storage, which they had to back off. They were in front of the zoning board. And so we worked with them during that. We asked them to, and the good thing about these two things, while we were working on those laws, is that you have them to learn to make the law better, to make it work better. A couple other ones is New York self-storage. That one was just recently. If you recall, we had to modify the self-storage law in the C1 zone to allow this. It was a few lines of code, but nevertheless couldn't do this project without it. And you have to remember that one of the reasons that it was important was because this was the Toys R Us building, which was vacant for over 2 years. And that owner had been coming to us periodically saying, what about this use? We have somebody that might be interested. What about a furniture use? We have somebody that might be interested. The winner here, so to speak, or the ones that lasted, was self-storage. Not the greatest thing in my personal view for C1, but we worked with them to make it work. And if you look at this rendering, you can see that I think that it did work, that it doesn't necessarily look like a self-storage. It's going to be an addition and not a detraction from that neighborhood. Extra storage was another one that's under Staples. There was no way that could go in until we wrote the law that allowed it or amended the law. We've worked with Wyant, which is still in process, but there was a lot of pre-meetings with that. In fact, we asked them to do kind of a mini master plan in conjunction with their neighbor, the Roma building. Both of those, before there were formal applications, both the town board and the planning board were looking at them, as was my department. And then, of course, there's Yorktown Green and the Soundview property, which we also had some contact with in the summer. And you'll see those projects again tonight. Well, you'll see the one of them. Another one I want to mention is Barger Street. Barger Street there's a property at the southwest corner of Taconic State Parkway and Route 6. It has long been looked at as a good site for a hotel. And in the comprehensive plan that was adopted in 2010, there was an overlay zone recommended for that property, which would allow a hotel, even though the underlying zoning is for offices.
Correct.
Now, in those years, periodically, we have been talking to that property owner. He's come in with hotels. He's come in with multifamily. He's come in and said, tell me what the town would like to see. And we always work with them to try to facilitate the project. The town wants to see certain things there. Now, the overlay zone was for a hotel, and it's actually called a Country Inn. It was in the comprehensive plan, along with the Bear Mountain Triangle, as you know, was an overlay or is an overlay, and also Lake Osceola. Those three are in our comprehensive plans as having the potential to do overlay zones. Overlay zones were never adopted. They were not written, but they're in the comprehensive plan, and they recognize these areas as the types of areas that may need some special look.
How do you pick a zone? How do you go about picking a zone that might be an overlay zone?
Well, in the case of the Barger Street, it was the fact that the town board did not want to lay down the zone that allows hotel because it was a commercial zone, regular commercial zone, because they did not want to have the retail because it would have attracted too much traffic. So it was about impacts. So they put the office zone there because office would work there because it's at the interchange, but it doesn't generate the type of retail traffic that you get on the weekends. It's really morning and evening traffic. So they put the overlay zone for the hotel to be able to modify and design that site so the hotel could work over top of the underlying zone. So you really had two uses that you could go with there.
Okay.
Okay. Now, in the case of Lake Osceola, it's because it needs investment. It doesn't have sewers. It has a environmental resource there that's important. So the overlay zone would facilitate the economic development while at the same time helping protect the aspects of the lake that are important. The Bear Mountain Triangle, given its location and the amount of vacant land that is in the Bear Mountain Triangle, it was looked at as an opportunity to strengthen the Crampon hamlet by designing a sort of small Main Street type development area, village-like. And some of that was actually done through Crampon Crossing. And then they did the rezone for the Mandalay, which had some commercial in the front and some housing in the back.
Okay.
So those are the types of reasons. It's really particular to the zone. Why we're looking at Yorktown Heights today? You have stresses in terms of vacancies. You have stresses in terms of the Amazon effect. And there's also stress in finding, I would say, the pressure in terms of development, development market that is leaning towards apartments. So all those three taken together makes it a likely candidate for an overlay zone to have the flexibility so that you can manage the design appropriately and not have a typical zoning code which is very flat and has no flexibility in it, so it precludes many things that you would normally hope to do.
But you're not saying throw out all the rules that apply to building.
No, we're not throwing out any rules, actually.
Okay.
John, I have a question. You forgot to mention the Ellington Road. They have the solar at the school. It was also very, very large project in the town. There was the first one large project.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and back to the solar, there's a lot of pressure for that type of facility. We've seen a number of properties and solar developers making inquiries about projects, and we got another one today, someone that we've been talking to but has gone silent over the holidays. So, and they, we've been talking to them, and again, we were in the midst of producing the law is my point on that.
Okay. So this is from 2010.
This is from 2010, and the little history here is it's really from 2003. If you recall, the comprehensive plan started in 2001.
Right.
The draft came out in 2003. These were in it, including a couple of more. The draft was amended, and it was finally adopted in 2005. The amendments, they were centered on upzoning the single-family areas of the town to reduce overall impacts across the town. At the same time, the plan was recommending these types of uses and housing diversity in and around the hamlets, some of which we are seeing today. So the plan, and by the way, the plan after 2005, we were sued, the town was sued. They were sued because of the upzoning, and that was modified yet again. And 5 years later, in 2010, it was finally adopted. And then in 2011, the rezonings were done. So there's a long history to that, but I want to let you know that the design districts, the overlays, is nothing new. nothing new to Yorktown. It's been in there since 2003. You'll find examples of this across the country. There are similar types of zoning tools that are being used around Westchester for a number of years. There are, as we speak, a number of communities in Westchester that are doing something very close to what we're doing. So none of this is new. It's not really that novel. I wouldn't say we're late to the game. It's just that we've stretched out our game a little longer than maybe we would have liked to. But certainly what we see now out in the market and in the world today is kind of driving us to sort of adopt these kinds of things.
John, even though it was approved, proposed in 2003, approved officially in 2010.
Yeah.
The town really never implemented it. So all we're doing is implementing a concept that was really approved by the town board more than a decade ago.
That's correct. That's correct. Yep. And any more you want me to talk about pre-meetings or the process?
Yeah, not for me.
Not for me. I'm good.
Okay.
Any questions from the town board on either of those?
I think we should have public access to this process. Even they should know, those who are interested in
Public access
down
to
that side or something.
Yeah. Yep. I mean,
But a lot of those meetings, and I'm thinking of a couple, John, that you and I have sat in. They're purely conceptual, and so not until that they are committed enough. And if you go back to the flow, to that pre-preliminary application, that's where the public sees that they're a legitimate proposal for the town. Because
Yes.
if someone's just coming in conceptually, like John said, a minority of those proposals actually even make it to that point. The minority of those proposals get to the planning board because they just, for whatever reasons, they fall apart.
Yeah.
I mean, I've joined John on meetings this year where they're purely conceptual. There's no mapping. It's really just a fact-finding mission. And it may amount to something, but it also may amount to absolutely nothing. And the fact that our staff is willing to invest the time to partner with those people, I think actually is a tribute to them, because their time is very valuable. I mean, I can tell you firsthand from working with them for the last year, especially our planning department, that they're getting people knocking on their door quite frequently to get that information, so they know whether or not they have a project that's viable, and if they want to continue to invest, because there's a lot of soft money that is also invested up front to prepare their application. So, I mean, these are all business decisions that they have to make, and they're not going to make them unless they're having realistic conversations with people like our planning department to really get them to that next phase, which is that pre-preliminary application. Correct, John?
yeah, and that speaks to what happened in 2008 with it being, business friendly.
Right.
There's a lot of investment that goes into it, and the more information that those guys have at the outset, it's better for them in terms of understanding what they're up against, to have that information. And those meetings, by the way, Matt, they can be anything. They're very varied in terms of what each developer wants. They can be, what would the town like to see on this particular property, to here's my plan. It's fairly well developed. Where do I start? So
Right.
there's the whole gamut. And I would say that some of them have very particular ways of wanting to go and make their plans public. They often do not want to roll them out to the public immediately. They want to gain that little bit more of information before all of that investment takes place. So
100%.
and so it's not just this one item thing here. There's a lot of layers to this.
And John, you and I have also been in meetings where we've heard some ideas, and we're both kind of like, that's probably not going to fit. It's just not going to fit in the community. So before they go and they invest all this money up front to get that application prepared, then to go to the planning board, only to get smacked by the planning board and being told the same thing by the planning board, we're really providing that service to them. And I think actually a lot of people that, in those cases, some of the cases that conversation that we've had, I think they've appreciated the honesty. And instead
I want to commend him. I want to commend them for doing what they do.
Yeah.
Because a good business person is going to come and talk to them before they invest money.
Yep.
Basically to see whether or not what they want to do fits, or maybe we can do something to make it fit. But I think that's the smarter route most business people take.
Yeah. And Mohegan Motors comes to mind, which is one that was just finished last year. And
great point.
The owner of that is very thankful for our input. He thinks we made the project better. He believes that we made the look of the place better. And he felt that the corporate folks somewhere in the country didn't have the right ideas for this particular area. So yeah. He's very grateful.
When I first came in, you said something to me that's always stuck with me on this process. And that's that your department never considers an application to be complete until it gets its final approval from the planning board. So even if an applicant comes in thinking they have the greatest project to ever come to the town of Yorktown, there is still a full process for them to go through, including a full review from your planning board and a number of agencies that have to weigh in. And I've seen you do this. I've sat in
By the way, they were at that gas station the other day doing something.
Okay, we're back. We had some technical difficulties. We want to apologize. Hopefully everyone, the feed is back on for everybody here. It's my understanding there's actually there's internet outages all across the Northeast right now. So again, our apologies for the disruption. I do want to just reiterate my last point, and then I think we're going to move on to our next item on the agenda. But the point that I made, and I don't know where we got cut off, but something that John had expressed to me when I first took this position, and something that I've seen firsthand through the planning board proceedings, is that a formal application is never considered complete. An application is never considered complete until they receive that final resolution from the planning board. So even if you go through the pre-planning meetings, even if you go do a pre-preliminary application, even if you put a formal application to the planning board, the planning department and the planning board does not consider that complete until it goes through the entire process. And we saw that flow chart up a little while ago. And that is on, by the way, we did have it confirmed that is also on the planning department's website off of yorktownny.org. So I think that's very important for the public to understand from a process standpoint. Just because someone puts an application in, and you know, a bunch of those applications from the last year are rattling around in my head that this happened to, that's not the final product. And so our planning board does a great job working through that process, and our planning department does a great job working through that process. But John and Robin, I want to thank you for bringing that presentation to the board, for educating us, and really the historical part too, I think is great as well for people to understand that, once again, we're not, you know, there's been questions of chicken versus, I've heard chicken and egg analogies, but fact of the matter is the egg was approved in 2010 as part of the comprehensive plan, and actually 2003 if you go all the way back. So I want to thank you for educating not just the board but the public. Are there any questions from the board for Robin or John on their presentation?
Yeah, John, I do. John, can you explain for the town board what our next steps are with regard to the overlay zone?
Well, you're getting close to where you should refer it out. And so there is a few housekeeping things that we'd like to amend in the draft law. I would also suggest that you take a look at this next project and also the sound view to make sure that there's nothing that you see there that would cause any desired amendment to the law itself. So there's those two things. So,
but we haven't accepted the map that you've given us, which calls these places.
That's correct. And so you'll have to, you know, along with that, you'll have to say, this is the boundaries. Tell us that you want something in, something out, the boundary to change. We will do that. And then you will refer the law out with the two maps for Lake Osceola and Yorktown.
And again, just for a point of information for the public, John, when we say refer out, can you be more specific? Who are we referring out to?
Everybody. So it's a legal term. You're going to be declaring lead agency or declaring your intent to be lead agent. And it goes to your neighboring towns. It goes to all of the agencies in town that would be normally interested in and connected with the laws. You'll send it to people that you desire to have input from, interested agencies, planning board, zoning board, for instance. So it goes to a whole host of people.
And then from there, there's a public hearing.
Right. There's a 30-day period. Typically, you get your comments back. You can do a public hearing at that time, or you can decide to discuss the law further pursuant to some of your comments or anything else that you've learned during that time.
Perfect.
Okay, so right now there are only 3 areas of Yorktown that have an overlay zone, and they've been there since 2010.
That's correct.
One of which is the Osceola.
I have a question, John.
They're unadopted though.
Right.
Unadopted. So no area.
We're just
the zoning around the sound view is 1 acre zoning or 2 acre zoning. I'm really not sure what it is. So depending on the number of acres, And then, is there any limits? How many town has authority to build the units, number of units, or open space square feet wise, or this is be negotiated between the developer and the town board and the planning board.
Okay, well, there are,
And for-
in the existing zoning code, there are requirements and there are minimums and there are unit count restrictions. It really comes differently than that. It's zoned single family. I believe it's 1 acre. It maybe it's 1 acre. So the way you get your unit count on that is you actually do a plan, a layout, and you stay away from whatever environmental constraints you have to stay away from, or you encroach on them to a certain degree. Essentially, the planning board reviews it and looks at it and determines that whatever plan with whatever number of homes is somewhat appropriate and possible to be approved. And that's how you gain your unit count in single family. In multifamily, there is floor area ratios that you deal with. And that's how you do it in the R3 zone. In the proposed law, that's where you get more of the negotiation, Vishnu, that you spoke about.
Yeah.
So the approving board, which in this case is now proposed to be the planning board, will be looking at it. Now, there is in the law a cap that's proposed for the FAR. That includes mixed use, which will be commercial and potentially residential, could be all residential. But that will be a cap, but the planning board can determine in the same way that they determine through a review process what the appropriate density is. They will determine up and to that cap that is in the draft what unit count through the FAR calculations will be allowed, and they'll do it in a way that is most appropriate given all of the parameters that they normally deal with in subdivisions. So that's how it's set up right now.
So there was some development program was proposed on Route 6 in Osceola, and they had the similar number and a requirement of changing the zone, and they decided not to come. What was the reason? Because of the number of units or environmental issue or something?
Are you talking about on East Main Street?
Yeah.
The Summit? Yeah, Summit had they were slightly under the allowable FAR for R3.
Mm-hmm.
But the feel, and I'm talking the subjectiveness that some of the reviewers felt, planning board and possibly town board, and even people in the community were questioning whether that density was appropriate. Now, why they did not continue, I can't really speak to that. But they, pursuant to the conversation that we just had, they probably came to the conclusion that this is not an investment that I want to pursue right now. Maybe because of what they were hearing. So I don't know all that for a fact, Vishnu, but the first part of what I told you is factual.
Yeah, and I think for me, part of that issue is they were proposing the same number of units, whereas if the town board made Soundview part of the overlay district, that they would be able to have the same number of units there, correct?
Say the first part again. I'm sorry.
The Summit,
Yes.
the number of units, I think the last I heard was they were proposing 150.
Right. That sounds right.
And you've said the planning board reviewers had problems with that, as well as some members of the town board. Yet, if we approve the Soundview property for an overlay, they could have that same number of units in that area.
Meaning comparable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm done.
Okay. Then we're going to move on to our next agenda item. and it's a very exciting one. But by the way, Diana, could you let Adam Rodriguez back in? He got knocked off. I apologize for that. Thank you. And so we're going to move on to our next agenda item. I know people are very excited to hear this proposal. We are welcoming a number of individuals. Let's see. We have with us Darius. We have with us Eden, Jane Oster. We have with us Freddie, Jerry, Tim. Seeing if we have everybody. Let's see who we have here. I see David Steinmetz, but I think he's on for the next one. David, sorry about that. We'll be right with you. But I see Eden. Eden, how are you?
Hello, everybody. How you doing?
Thank you for joining us. Darius?
Pleasure.
Supervisor, how are you?
You're good. Tim, good evening. Matt, how are you?
Good evening.
It's great to see everybody. So this is one of the parcels that would obviously be that is being proposed for the overlay district, and this is the infamous Yorktown Green, aka Kmart, aka Food Emporium, and we're very excited to welcome these folks to the town board and to hear their presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Darius Shafazada with the law firm of Harris Beach on behalf of the developer, Oster Yorktown. Thank you, members of the town board, also for hearing us tonight. We have an exciting project, we think, and we're really excited to get going and move forward. And we've been studying your overlay zone and discussing this with some of your staff, and we appreciate their time too. Little background here, as you know, the Kmart site the Kmart has been out of business for a number of years now, and there's also a empty supermarket on the site also. We have some exciting plans, exciting visuals and renderings to show the board tonight to see our vision for the site. One of the key things that's going to happen is the redevelopment of the Kmart. Plan is to demolish the Kmart and build a beautiful new mixed-use retail on the bottom floor, residential on top, with a nice, beautiful meeting courtyard place in the middle. We'll have some great renderings for you to see, and also have some site plans so you can see it, how it lays out on the site. Plan also is to have a new tenant come into the existing supermarket, which has also been empty for a number of years now. We have exciting potential tenants there. Nothing we can specifically say tonight as a tenant, but we think the town will be very excited once we finalize our negotiations with a new tenant there. With that in mind, just a little background on the company, Oster. They have owned this site for a number of years. They are a large developer. They own and operate approximately 2 million square feet of commercial development in northern New Jersey. They also own properties in Rockland County and New York City. They also currently have under management 500 apartment units in its portfolio. So our point here is we have a very seasoned developer coming in and looking to redevelop this site. We've done this before, and we can do it again very successfully. We love to be partners with the town of Yorktown. We have our development team here. We have our architects, Jarmel Kizel, specifically Matt Jarmel and his team are here tonight to present the details of the plan. Obviously, these are still a moving target, but we just wanted to show you what our vision was for the site so we can work with your board, Mr. Supervisor. Also here from Oster is Tim Huddleston. Tim is with the company for a number of years and has been working on this plan for a number of years, and he's here to answer any questions about the company, should you have any. The plan generally, residential is proposed to have 150 residential units and also have retail space on the bottom as indicated. What I'm going to do now is turn the microphone over to Matt, and he will walk you through, Matt Jarmel, excuse me, not the supervisor. And Matt will walk you through the plan. And also show you the renderings of what we see for this project. And we'd love to get some feedback from you. And And we think this is an exciting time to redevelop a site that has needed it for a number of years.
Excellent.
Thank you, Darius. Good evening. I'm Matthew Jarmel. I'm principal of the architectural and engineering firm Jarmel Keisel. And my firm has had the fortunate pleasure of being retained to assist Oster in redesigning this shopping center and making it a mixed-use development. If I may, do I have permission to share my screen?
Yes, you should be able to.
Okay. So what I've put up now and what you should be able to see, well, not yet. Now you should be able to see a Google Maps version of the center.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'll point out to you is our total center, which spans from Downing Drive, Sawmill River Road, and Keene Street, doesn't include the retail center I'm pointing to now, but it basically includes this whole area here. Is a hair under 15 acres, about 14.9 acres. The development is approximately retail building as you enter the site off of Downing, the closed Kmart, which is roughly 90,000 square feet. Directly adjacent and attached to it is another small strip retail building. Both these retail buildings, the strip ones, are about 9,000 square feet each. And then the large, unfortunately vacant supermarket, which our attorney has indicated, hopefully there'll be a new tenant. I want you to take notice to the fact that there's a main transportation kind of corridor through the site. Runs north to south. It runs in front of the strip retail, the Kmart, and the other strip retail. And it's our intent to kind of maintain that transportation and circulation through the site. But we're going to focus on the Kmart building, which we are going to demolish in its entirety and replace it with a new multifamily building. Bear with me 1 second while I switch images. What I'm putting up now is a rendering that we've prepared for the supermarket. I'm sorry, from the multifamily housing. So what we're proposing is a new building. It's U-shape, and I'll show you in the plan in a moment. But where I'm taking the cursor now, left to right, shows the north to south corridor within the shopping center. And we propose to build what I'll consider very high-end, more luxury type apartments consisting of 1 and 2 bedrooms. Right now, our concept has 84 1-bedrooms and 66 2-bedroom apartments. The ground floor of the building is proposed to be a combination of retail tenants and covered parking. The upper floors are proposed to be the apartments. And you can see we're using high quality materials. I'll just zoom in for a second on one corner of the building. And what you'll notice is the lower level of the building is commercial. Okay, it's intended to be retail. We have a band that will separate both kind of the function and aesthetics of the lower level from the upper residential levels. It provides for a sign band. And then when we go to the residential areas, we switch to a combination of kind of from storefront to brick, conventional residential siding. We have a series of what we call Juliet balcony openings. We'll have some stone and stucco, and we're having a sloped roof. And what the sloped roof actually allows us to do is there's a well behind it, which allows us to have all our mechanical equipment hidden. There's a few different concepts. This is a concept, and let me back up a second. Not only do we plan to demolish the Kmart and build an apartment building, we propose to give all the retail buildings in the center a facelift. So this building that I'm showing you a rendering of now, again, that main transportation corridor, now we're looking in a southerly direction, would get a makeover with a new storefronts, new facade, new signage, and you can see the proposed multifamily mixed-use building in the background behind it.
So that, going back, if you could go back for a second.
Sure.
So that's like suburban right there.
the Taco Bell, right? That's that strip.
That
Correct.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
So this gets rebuilt. Just coming back in the site plan, this is turned north is to the right. So the road at the top is a sawmill. And what you can see in the middle here is we've removed the Kmart and now we've replaced it with the multifamily building with a nice green space in the middle. I'm going to zoom in on that. So this is the first floor and site plan of the multifamily building. So when you come off our main access corridor, there's a one-way drive around it. At the top of it is a portico share where you can drop off and let people in and out of the main residential building lobby. But all around it in the center, we propose a green. And we are at the preliminary stages of this, but we see this as a beautiful area outside with gazebos and benches and landscaping for people that are either living in the facility or maybe shopping or dining in the area to utilize. The intent is to wrap the U on the sides and sort of somewhat symmetrical with small retail tenants that have head-in parking. And then you'll also notice that where I'm taking my cursor now is covered parking. So if you were a resident, you could pull in and under the building and park to move up.
Matthew, if we go back to the rendering, maybe you could zoom in on the. Oh, that's a nice.
So here's a head-on version of that.
Yeah.
So just to orient you on the site plan, the rendering is right here, looking straight through.
Okay.
And this one's not colored yet, but this is a little bit of a hint of color. So this gives you an idea of this beautiful plaza that we plan on creating within the middle of what I'll call a U-shaped circulation pattern around the multifamily building. So it gives it presence, it gives it entrance, defines the entry, but it also creates an outdoor space that will have greenery, and it'll be not just for the residents, but of the retail customers as well. So what we're doing by bringing this retail building by bringing this multifamily building into a retail center and creating a mixed-use development, we're providing density. We're kind of gifting the commercial by providing density of housing and residential to service it. So what happens is we have this great synergy of people living here, shopping here, eating here, and vice versa. We have people from the rest of the community in Yorktown or surrounding areas coming here to shop that can also use the plaza and visit people within the building as well. So just to...
Can I ask some questions right now?
Please.
The number of parking will still remain the same what it is now, right?
Well, it'll actually increase, sir. So currently on site in this general area here that I'm showing you and around the buildings.
No, I'm very familiar with that, but I have another question. This is the high end. The whole town is high end, there are low end and high end together in the town, okay? So remember that one because, people, those who have able to afford, they are the one who can come and live and not the other, because the town would like to have some of the affordable unit where town police, the teacher, they can start living. So I don't know, is there anything you're going to accommodate something like that for them too?
Well, at this time, I'm not actually the person that should answer. It'd probably be my client. But what I can tell you is that we're in the process of working with them, and they're working with their marketing people to do marketing studies to find out what the appropriate price points are for the area. And certainly we're in discussions with you being the town board as to whether or not there would be any requirement for a set aside. At this point, that there has not been anything thought about. But certainly there is opportunities to do that as well. And then
I think, Matthew, one thing that the point of this and the concept of this is to provide alternatives to empty nesters or young millennials to have a place to live where they either can't afford their house anymore or don't want to pay the high taxes. This would allow them to stay in the town, or youngins to come back to your town and live here and be able to afford it without having to pay high property taxes. but we understand the question about affordability and obviously your emergency services people, and we will definitely discuss that with the client and come back to you and the town and discuss that.
So you think there'll be a tax revenue neutral for the housing portion?
I'm sorry, can you say that again? I missed the question.
Would it be the tax revenue generated for the town will be higher?
Well, we think this will definitely maintain the tax base, and it's likely that it'll be even higher than it is now. Yes, we haven't done a detailed study of the finances of the taxes, but it'll definitely maintain the tax base. And given the number of apartments and the assessment issues, we believe it'll be at least the same, if not more.
Darius, Councilman Diana here. I may have missed it. What was the price point on these rentals going to be?
Can't have one.
Oh, okay. I didn't miss it then.
We will do that. We are in the process of doing the marketing studies, and we'll provide that information shortly.
Okay, thank you.
Looking at total rentals, not ownership or co-op.
Rentals.
That's correct.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Councilman Diana.
Oh, no, I apologize, Matt. I was just going to say, that will there be any set aside for our seniors for these particular units? In other words, senior accessibility, so on and so forth?
We'll definitely discuss that with your board and the supervisor and staff. I don't think anything's off the table, but it's something we will definitely consider and talk to the client about.
Okay, thank you.
Could you go back to you talked about Matthew, great name by the way. You talked about you talked about the importance of having that population to support the retail or support the restaurants directly on site. Mm-hmm. Do you and maybe this isn't necessarily a question for Matthew, but to Darius or to your clients, do you manage other similar properties?
So I'm an architect, so I don't manage, but what I can tell you is throughout the retail world, there's a rethinking of how retail spaces are designed to service the world. You know, we live in an e-commerce situation, and certainly this pandemic has shown us the value of e-commerce. But this Kmart is empty because of e-commerce. And what we see as architects and as planners is that many retail centers and some very large shopping malls as well we're working on are being repositioned to become mixed use. And in fact, I can't identify the specific project, but I have a project where we're traditional shopping mall. We're taking down several anchor stores and replacing it with multifamily housing. And the idea of it is, as our population is growing, and it is growing, the need for the traditional retail space is declining because of e-commerce. So what you want to do is you from a planning standpoint, at least in my opinion, you want to put people where they shop. And what we're also seeing with retail is conventional retail, where you go to a Kmart, which was a store where you could buy anything, right? Anything anything from sporting goods to clothing and so on. All that is e-commerce, but there are certain things that you can't buy through e-commerce. You can't go out to a restaurant through e-commerce. You might be able to get your food delivered, but you can't. You can't, I know even though most supermarkets will deliver now, people like to go in and touch the produce and pick it up and look at it and at least pick their food and see it firsthand. So retail is changing to what I'll call more of a service-oriented type of service where it's less retail goods, but more things like restaurants, fitness, childcare, and so on. So the retail footprint is becoming smaller, but by bringing people here, if we talk about 150 units, we could have, possibly 300 plus or minus people living here that are now also consumers and supporting not just the retail tenants in our center, but the surrounding neighborhoods as well.
I've got a comment. When I saw your rendering, which was lovely.
Thank you.
I thought about the Reader's Digest area. Have you gone up there?
Yeah.
I have not. No.
That was I thought about that as soon as I saw it. And I agree with you in terms of e-commerce. I don't think we're ever going to look at those big stores again. I think those smaller stores for small business owners, I think is probably going to be the way forward over the next century or whatever. Your rendering sure looks a lot different than what it looks like in person.
Yes, thank you.
I know you can't get into detail, but on the Food Emporium side, are you planning on keeping that as one full building, or are you subdividing that for multiple tenants? Are you able to at least?
Tim, maybe you want to answer that?
Yeah, that would be one building, one tenant at the moment. We are going to renovate the facade of that building as well to try to keep it in keeping with the rest of the renovation of the remaining center.
Are you planning but on that building, are you planning on putting apartments above it, or are you keeping it as it stands?
As it stands.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're clear.
Yep.
And Matthew, I just want to thank you because I think it's important for our residents to understand how the economy is changing and why when people keep asking about traditional retail sites in the town, why it just can't be filled. I mean, we've been successful at places like the Toys R Us up in Jefferson Valley, where we're moving in a different direction up there by putting a storage facility up there. But in this case, I think it's important for our residents to understand that this really does recognize the evolving economy that we're facing, especially post-COVID, especially e-commerce, and what impact that has on traditional retail. And so if we're going to adapt to that changing economy, to your point, these types of mixed use proposals are really what's driving a lot of the development in suburban towns.
Absolutely, or redevelopment.
Redevelopment. Thank you.
For repositioning. By the way, if I may, just I left out a little bit part of my presentation is that the apartment building will also have amenities for the tenants. There's going to be internal lounge. There'll be a fitness center for them, and there'll be personal storage lockers that they can rent extra space when you mentioned storage facilities. So that'll also be included. And what I really like about, and what a lot of my clients do, is they tend to build 1 and 2 bedroom buildings. And the reason for that is they're really flexible in that they allow, we'll say, young professionals that are starting out in their career that need a place to live before maybe they move to home ownership to start off in a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment. It also allows seniors or older, what we call empty nesters whose children have grown and moved out of their home, but want to stay in the community, but don't need a big house to scale down. And we also find, and not that we don't like children, I have 4 myself that I'm responsible for, but we find that buildings that are set up with 1 and 2 bedrooms have limited amounts of children, school-age children, which I know is sometimes a concern of the school boards in terms of, are we going to bring in dozens of children? Statistics and studies have shown that these buildings don't. They're really sort of a stepping stone for families that are just starting out. They may have a child in this building, but then they'll relocate to a home as their families grow.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you from experience, when my wife and I first got married, we got lucky because we were renting a house off of Radcliffe Drive, which is a wonderful neighborhood. But fact of the matter was, we were very limited in our options if we wanted to stay in the town of Yorktown, and also we just frankly couldn't afford home ownership at that time. So this is something I think that everyone I've heard from many people in town, both from a millennial standpoint and young professional standpoint, but also from as you pointed out, empty nesters, and I always try to think, how would it affect people in my position? And I think my mom is a perfect example because she's a homeowner, but she would love to downsize, but she also wants to stay in the community where I'm raising my kids. So providing those options, I think, important, and I've heard from many residents in the same boat. So that would be a great asset, I think, to be able to expand that housing stock in the town. Councilman Patel, you had a question.
Yes, in terms of energy, do you have any plan for green energy, solar energy, or some kind of which can reduce the cost of heating and cooling and like that?
Well, in the overlay district legislation, there are environmental requirements that they have to meet that are stipulated within that legislation.
So if I may, Councilman, one of the things I like about redevelopment projects is you don't cut down trees when you do them. So they tend to be very, very environmentally friendly in that we're reusing existing infrastructure that's already in place. So this particular center already has a storm system design that functions well. And not only are we going to be utilizing that, but we're going to be improving and reducing the amount of runoff, storm runoff. So by creating this green plaza. So beyond energy, and I'll answer your question specifically about that in a moment. There are a lot of what I'll call green features that go into a redevelopment project like this. So we address not just energy, but we address stormwater, which tends to be a real issue these days to prevent flooding, but also keep stormwater quality up because it's our drinking water. This facility will be designed so that each individual apartment has its own HVAC and heating system, which is great. So because if there's vacancies or if people aren't home, you don't have to run a plant for the entire building. It also allows residents to adjust their temperature to which tends to be very subjective, to their own liking. Mm-hmm. These will all be new, modern HVAC systems that are energy efficient. They'll have high what's called SEER ratings, and they'll be very, very effective. There'll be new windows in the building that are heat effective. We have talked about solar. We haven't decided whether or not it makes sense for a project like this. Candidly, although it's a big building, we've reduced the roof area of this building compared to the Kmart by about 50%. So there's not, and we have a sloping roof. So there's not a tremendous opportunity to do solar in terms of where we put it. But in addition to that, every tenant not only will have their own HVAC unit, they'll have their own gas and electric meter. So when you do solar projects, they're more appropriate, actually, candidly, for a building like a Kmart. Makes a lot of sense to do solar because it's 1 meter. Here we're gonna have at least I don't know 170 meters because we'll have 150 tenants. We'll have retail tenants. So it's very hard to kind of divvy up and determine how the solar works there. But with that said, we are exploring ways to make this building extremely energy efficient. In fact, the current building codes of New York State and really the national trend is to really force buildings to be very, very energy efficient.
Where are the units going to be for the air conditioning units? Are they going to be on the roof? Are they going to be on the roof and shielded from view, or are they going to be elsewhere?
They are, Councilman. So we haven't finalized that because we're in the very, very early, design. But the intent is, as I just mentioned, is for each unit to have its own HVAC system. Whether that's what we call a split unit, like you might see in your home, where you have, let's say, a furnace and an evaporator coil in your basement or somewhere in your house, and a condensing unit outside, or if it's all contained in the unit within the apartment. We haven't finalized yet. However, I can assure you that any mechanical equipment that we require will go on the roof. And if you'll notice, and maybe I'll just go back to my rendering for a second, if I can. You'll notice we have sloping roofs, and actually this was something that came out of your town professional suggestion. The first rendering we showed was a flat roof. But what's really happening here is, I'll call this more of a sloping parapet, or almost a mansard. It's kind of a false. It's a false flat sloping roof. It's truly sloping, but as it goes up, behind it, there's a well. And that well is probably, the wall is probably 6 feet high. So any mechanical equipment that we put on the roof will be screened. And the only way you'd probably be able to see it is from a plane or a helicopter if you were higher than it. So,
yeah. I just refer back to I know Kmart's coming down, but you look at it from the front, it looks pretty nice. You look at it from Route 118, which more people pass it, and you see all that.
Yeah, the grade of
on the roof.
The grade of 118 is almost level with the roof of the Kmart, right?
Right.
That's higher. So we'll now be higher than the highway, so you won't be able to see any of our.
There we go. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure.
Do we have any sense, Matthew, what it would look like from 118, from
well,
road?
Yeah, I mean, yes, it'll look the same, so our intent, this is, I don't have a rendering in the rear of the building, but our intent is to utilize all the same materials as they wrap the building. So we're not looking to cheapen the quality of the finish or the facade as we get, let's say, to the back of it.
Yeah, because I know obviously the view when you drive down 118 and you look over, you're seeing the top and the back of a shopping plaza. So it's pretty obvious that what you're looking at. So if we can enhance that, that would be, I think.
You're gonna look at a building, and one of the things that we achieve, and it's common in planning ideas. This is a big building, or it's a long building. Certainly when you come to the inside of the U. So we try, and I believe maybe your redevelopment plan already or is thinking about having these type of architectural requirements, but it won't be a straight, long, flat wall. There'll be some steps in and out in it, and there'll be changes in materials both horizontally and vertically to create interest. So it's not just a long, boring wall.
Excellent.
I
I'm sorry, go ahead, Councilwoman Roker.
Okay, I just think this is a smart development, both from a commercial and residential point of view, both the apartments and these smallest stores. That's where I think we're headed for now.
Without a doubt, Councilwoman Roker, I own a small business which you cannot buy on Amazon. It's a massage studio, and I'm in White Plains. And White Plains is doing this, but on a much more grand scale with high-rise buildings. But I look at a project like this, and I say this is a place where I would open up another studio. Like you said, it brings you to your client without having to look. So if you do a decent job in what you're supposed to be doing, you get it. So, I think it's great. I did, and maybe I'm putting the cart before the horse a little bit, but I think that, when we look at a traffic study, we may want to tie in on any other projects going around, and just to make sure that that's all involved. But that's, I look forward to seeing this go through the planning and the whole process and see where it ends up. I think it looks great so far, and like to see where it goes.
Just to be clear,
Not there yet.
There's no application at this point in time. Is that accurate? Darius, can you answer?
Yeah, that's correct. We are in the process of finalizing the application. We can be as ready in, I would say, 2 weeks and get something into the town.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we're clear, though, from the public standpoint, that there's no application that's been filed with the plan.
Not only is there no application, they're not in the overlay district. Not yet.
Not yet. The overlay district needs to be approved. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're sort of waiting on that, Mr. Supervisor, but we are prepared to submit as soon as the town is ready for us.
Great.
And actually, in transparency, let me throw out that because I think that this is a great plan, there are still a lot of unanswered questions, because I know how some people like to assume that one statement means a heck of a lot more. There are a lot of questions to be answered, and I know you have a few of them. You've heard from us already today. I'm the liaison for our senior advisory, so those questions that Councilman Diana asked about the senior housing are very important aspects from what we look at. And
then I have to ask the same question, Ed, because I'm a liaison in the housing board.
That's right. And I think they actually approached set-asides when they were talking. So, and that, there are definitely a lot of different issues that we'll have to talk down the line. But I am definitely eager to see this call in motion.
And you're saying we won't have Lake Caldor anymore?
Some people might not like that. I hear all the stories from my wife's family about how you would go shopping and you turn around and your cart would be halfway down the aisle.
I don't know. I think it's an opportunity to bring a little amenity to the place. Maybe you want to reinstitute Lake Caldor.
Yeah, right. We can do an ice skating rink there.
And a fishing pond.
Put it in the middle of the courtyard there.
Many people probably don't even.
Lake Art is pretty.
Many people probably don't even know what Lake Caldor is.
Oh. Okay,
There are,
right.
there
They've
are
been
pictures,
there
Tommy.
after-
Oh, I know it. Years ago, we had some fun with Lake Caldor. I worked at I'm not going to use the names. I worked at a local body shop. So we had the top roof of a clip off of a car. So we called the other body shop after we put it in Lake Caldor to come and tow the car out, but it was only the roof that was standing there.
Funny.
I'm glad the statute of limitations has passed on that.
Yes. And they got even with us not long after that.
John and Robin, any comments from your standpoint on the presentation or on the plan?
My comments are positive. I worked with Matt and his team, while he was developing the concept, and I think they did a very nice job so far.
Thank you. By the way, I have to give credit to my colleagues who are on the call here. Freddie Alameda, who's project manager on this project, he's done most of these renderings and designs. A very talented architect. Also had a baby boy on Friday.
That is so nice.
He's here tonight when he's supposed to be off. And my colleague, Jerry Gisario, who runs our civil engineering department, has been preparing the site plan documents that will be part of the submission. And you'll obviously, as this project moves forward, you'll be hearing from Jerry on site testimony as well.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Have a nice evening. Thank you.
Have a great night, everyone. Thank you so much.
You too, Mr. Supervisor.
All right, everybody, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Eden.
Thank you.
Appreciate your help
My
with this.
pleasure. My pleasure. Have a good one.
Good night, guys. Good night.
Okay. We're going to move forward with our next, again, the Underhill Farms, for those who were not at the beginning of the meeting, Underhill Farms they pulled their presentation from tonight's agenda. So we're going to go skip over that and go to Croton Overlook. And we're going to welcome David Steinmetz, Jody Cross. I thought I saw Whit Matthews and Matt Matthews. Great to see you both. Good evening.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
Steinmetz, how are we doing tonight?
Good evening, Mr. Supervisor. Good to see you all. And I would be remiss with all of that goodwill between and among Matthews in the last application. Not take advantage and make sure you're all clear. Tonight, I'm here with my client, Matt Matthews and Whit Matthews. So I could not have scripted that any better. So hopefully the goodwill among Matthews continues. Anyway, I am excited to be back before all of you. Good to see you all. You all look well, and everybody is weathering the storm of the pandemic. Sorry we're not all physically together, and look forward to the chance, hopefully, to do that soon.
Yeah.
We are back, as you know, with Croton Overlook. We had appeared at a work session some time ago. We had gotten enough of a green light from your board that we have now formally filed our application. So we are here tonight in connection with the project that Jody and I, about 7-8 years ago, you will recall, took through the approval process, full-blown SECRA, DEIS, FEIS, rezoning, and then our client did not continue forward. He ultimately passed away, and the project has now changed hands. I'm excited to be part of this team with Matt and with Whit, and to bring this project back before you. It is 62 acres presently in the R160 zoning district. Unlike the last project, this is a for-sale residential project. And the thing that's interesting is it's nice to see Yorktown getting a full panoply and balance of potential housing stock. This project is an age-restricted, senior-oriented, active adult, 55 and over project, as it was originally. It has, however, been reduced in size. When Jody and I took it through the approval process originally, it was 68 units. We are now pared down to 62 units. We are still located in the same essential building footprint or building pad. The site itself is 62 acres. Only about 20 to 25 acres are actually impacted by the development. I'm pleased to remind the board that, like last time, we have over 40 acres or approximately 40 acres of permanent, preserved, dedicated open space. I know we have
one of our neighbors who's quite a distance away, but has been monitoring this application. I think at least one or two of his lawyers are here this evening observing. We have been coordinating and working, I believe, cooperatively with that particular neighbor. There had originally been a walking trail with a meditation area at the top of the knoll or the top of the mountain. And our neighbor asked us to re-examine that and to remove that. And Matt and Whit were rather amenable and immediately eliminated that. Moving on, Councilman Patel, on the issue of green sustainability, you will be happy to hear this project is proposed with geothermal heating, which is something I don't get to say on a lot of my projects. So I'm proud that that Matt and Whit are looking forward to doing. That's the geothermal salesman calling.
Yeah, I was about to say he's already getting calls on it.
He's right out on it. We're hoping to bring some nice sustainable measures. They have not been fully baked out across the board, but the original commitment for geothermal is certainly there. And Matt and Whit, who have a tremendous amount of experience building homes throughout the area, certainly intend to continue their tradition of incorporating those systems and sustainable measures. So we're here for a rezoning to the RSP1 zoning district, which we were in. The only reason essentially that we're back is that rezoning lapsed and the project never got final site plan approval. So we have filed a rezoning petition. We are back in front of you ultimately for your board and or the planning board to determine which board is most suitable to serve as lead agency. We look forward to moving forward with the rezoning process, the SECRA process, the site plan and the subdivision process. As far as utilities, much like last time, the intention is to connect to municipal water in Route 100 south of the property. And in terms of sewage effluent, there would be an on-site sewage treatment plant with a surface discharge, again, as had been reviewed originally. Jody and I have supplied a short environmental assessment form with our rezoning petition, having disclosed to John and Robin that we have every intention of supplementing that with a full environmental assessment form. But just to make things easy, this project, as I said, it went through full-blown SECRA. Nothing's changed other than we've reduced the impacts. So while there may be some who want to obviously see the full environmental impact statement, a full environmental assessment form, which we will produce, we wanted to get going at the board's encouragement, and we have submitted on a short EAF. Mr. Supervisor, if you want, Jody and I are prepared to share screen and again display the project as we had previously.
I think that'd be good just to refresh the board's mind.
Yeah, let's do that.
I'm going to share the screen.
Great, thank you.
And you all see that?
Yeah.
Or do you want to walk through, or do you want me to? Whatever you prefer.
You go ahead.
We still have essentially a single spine road running essentially north-south, cul-de-sac at one end, road connection at the opposite end. You can see that the concept is for a number of what are referred to in the industry as two-packs. These are side-by-side townhouse units that have a common wall. The site itself would have a number of stormwater basins, and right now what Jody has in front of you is literally the development pad of the site. There are probably 40 so acres that are not fully illustrated on this. This is just a small snippet of the project, which is really the piece that is most relevant. Jody, if you could just cursor to exactly that area where Jody is bringing us to right there, that is what I would refer to as an out parcel that Croton Overlook originally 8 years ago intended to develop. At that time, our client was a contract vendee of that parcel. Matt and Whit are not owners of that parcel. They're not in contract for that. And my understanding is that you now have I believe, a cell tower on that property, and therefore that is no longer part of the development. So that's why you've got that kind of missing tooth along that side of the roadway. Other than that, this is essentially exactly what Larry Paggi, the project civil engineer, had laid out and graded out and designed originally. It's a nice distribution of units. By doing 2 packs rather than 3 packs or 4 packs, every unit is an end unit. Every unit has a tremendous amount of light and air. In today's day and age, with multifamily housing, frequently we are seeing projects that have longer linear buildings with internal units. There's nothing wrong with internal units. If they're laid out correctly, they can be wonderful, but there's nothing better than having, bay windows on either side of the building and literally a tremendous amount of light and air for environmental and safety and other beneficial reasons. As you can see from the back on the top of the illustration, Jody just cursoring up there, that's great. Pulling down, that's all of our open space. It's a really magnificent piece of property. It's got significant terrain and topographic change from kind of from north to south, but it will lend itself to a really nice natural preserved area with some walking trails. And as I said earlier, the Matthews are right and appropriate in saying they want to minimize any issue and disturbance to neighbors. They've got a lot of property here, and they intend to buffer themselves from their neighbors so that this community can truly be a quiet, senior, yet active adult community, something that we really don't have a lot of in Westchester County, let alone in northern Westchester. So this project would be revenue beneficial to the community. There would be no school-age children, and it would literally just throw off tax dollars and hopefully be a wonderful addition to the community. So I'm happy, Mr. Supervisor, to answer any questions. Procedurally, we're just looking to have our petition accepted for review, and we'd love to have a sense of which board intends to serve as lead agency.
Great. Well, since it's a rezone, obviously that falls to the town board. John Tegeter?
Yes.
I know that obviously planning is going to have to approve the site plan. Is that something that we can do in tandem?
Review them in tandem?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe so.
Did that the last time.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I believe so. Well, it'll be, if the planning board is lead agency, I think that they will be more efficiently reviewed in tandem. Whereas before, while the planning board was involved and the town board was lead agency, the town board eventually did rezone this. There was still yet a whole process at the planning board to be done, which never really occurred. So in this case, at the end of the seeker process, you will have a good seeker record. The town board will be able to, if they choose, approve the rezoning, and the planning board can continue on to whatever length they need to finish the site plan, which would be a lot less than if they were starting somewhat from 2 steps in or 3 steps in. Does that make sense to you, Dave?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, we don't have a particular preference. In all candor, you all know me. I know your boards. We're perfectly comfortable processing this wherever you ultimately would like to see this process. I think either board can be lead agency, and so we defer to staff. I'm going to throw one slight interesting curveball at you, just for food for thought. While Matt and Whit are committed to this and ready to move forward quite aggressively, I will tell you that they have, within the last 10 days, received some interest, some very significant and sincere interest about the possibility of looking at this site as a solar array installation. I'm aware of the town's adoption of the law. I'm aware that the town has looked at some other projects. And on behalf of my clients, if you all thought, wow, we would be so excited to have a solar array in southern Yorktown and on 60 acres hidden inside, we're happy to entertain that. I think Matt and Whit asked me to raise that. I did briefly mention this because I wanted you all to be aware. And again, in terms of sustainability and some cutting edge green technology, it is something that you all may be interested in.
Would be the same footprint?
So the interesting thing, great question, is the solar array concept would be almost identical. It's about a 20-acre installation. Obviously, the reason that Whit has designed this property in this particular area, Whit and Matt, I should say, is because this is the most buildable portion of the property. So the solar company reached the exact same conclusion. They're not looking to put an array up on a hillside overlooking neighbors. They would put it in the same general band that we just looked at.
At what point do you expect to determine whether you're proceeding with one or the other?
Well, I got on my computer, it says 9:09. So I'm hoping that by 9:11, you will have helped me make it.
Let me go first then. I lived in that area and it is beautiful. And I went through the development with you and Jody. I love the development. I think it is smart for that area. You can't see it from the road. I just think it's really a wonderful development that people will come and want to be there. That's my 2 cents.
My 2 cents would be, since you're already going geothermal, if you add some solar roof panels to the project, you could get the best of both worlds. and I think that there's some great opportunities here on the housing side, and I think some sustainability built into the project would be the best of both worlds. More sustainability.
Appreciate the candor.
I like the idea of the duplexes, so to speak. A big box with a cute roof line is one thing, but when you have duplexes, they have more. What's the word I'm looking for?
Architectural character.
There you go. Thank you, David. And I'm gonna write that one down. But no, I do like that. Do you guys have a rendering by chance of the what one may look like, one duplex may look like by chance?
Yeah, I think Jody has something. I'll tell you that we are planning to have a master bedroom on the first floor of every unit.
Okay.
And the effect of that is going to be to make the design a little bit lower than what Jody's going to show you.
Okay.
So this is from the DIS from the original project.
Right. It's beautiful.
They're gorgeous.
Wow.
Who wouldn't want to live there?
Very, very, very nice.
So they're designed to look like, really nice commanding homes, but they're actually 2 units. So there isn't that, cookie cutter on either side kind of feel.
Yeah.
Now with you mentioned having the master on the first floor of each unit. Are some of these going to be without entry steps? It looked like that last one had no entry step.
Sorry, want me to bring that back up?
No. The thought about accessibility for seniors is all.
I think there's no question. The concept is to try to make them as accessible as possible. Some are going to grade out better for that than others, as you can imagine. So there's no way we can tell you at this point without final grading that every unit is going to be,
I don't
roll in. But
certainly from the garage, and every unit's going to have a 2-car garage. There'd only be one step up from the garage to the house. And depending on what the code is, we could make that as little as a 4-inch step, so a wheelchair could easily mount that 4 inches.
Okay.
Great, thanks.
John Taggart, what do you think about the solar idea?
Just from a practical standpoint, it has a lot less impacts than might be associated with the residential development, so.
Yeah, it is a lighter touch.
Yeah.
For a good cause.
And the code requires screening. So not only the position of it, but there is.
Got screening.
I know it's got natural screening. I completely recognize that, which is why it's a great also for the housing development, and I recognize that as well. So honestly, I mean, I can go either way, to be frank, because I think that from John's standpoint, what he just said, also from a practicality point of view, you're still taking up the same footprint, but without the services. So I mean, I'm just saying that's some food for thought, So
I'm just being selfish, and I know it. I got it. Sorry. Sorry.
No, I agree. They are beautiful renderings. I think it could be a great development. I think it could be a very, very great development for a lot of reasons. But I wouldn't write off the solar off the bat.
No.
I don't think. No. I think that maybe as part of your secret process, maybe you can explore it and maybe you can get a better feel for it that way.
Great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I like the housing personally. And what about that property that's in the back? Can that be touched, or is that not able to be touched for solar?
So
that wouldn't be that in either case. That wouldn't be touched. So you got 40 acres back there, and not going to be touched in either case.
Okay.
And it's literally essentially a quarter mile to our nearest neighbor. So it's quite a buffer, regardless of what Matt and Whit decide to do there.
Right. Okay. Any community facilities, community rooms, anything like that?
I think it's too small, John, with only 62 units to really get any kind of serious community room. There is no proposed community pool. This is going to be an outdoor area of kind of walking paths and solitude.
Okay. So the curveball that I have, and I've thrown this before, Dave, your eyes may roll back in your head, but is that I think there's a hard requirement, and we'll have to look at this. I'm going from memory in the RSP1 for some community amenities. And so if you're not
walking trail.
If you're not providing, well, I think it's more like a community room, that kind of thing. So if you're not providing it, you may be pivoting to a different RSP.
Okay.
And we've been down this road before. I'm not going to belabor it. I'm throwing it out.
Fine. Somehow, John, and Jody and I have to go back and take a look. We obviously navigated this with you 8 years ago because we rezoned it into the RSP1, and I think you did not lose sleep over the last 8 years over that. So
No. So, I did not lose sleep over it, but I have a long memory, and so I'm like a junkyard dog. And once I bite into something, I hardly ever let go. The other curveball that I've been throwing for a long time is the access road and its connection to Route 100, which I think at that oblique angle is improper, and I would like to see it to be closer to a 90, if not a 90. So it's much safer for, I don't want to sound improper, but much safer for people to negotiate, especially when you're getting on in your years.
Got it. Understood. That does sound like a familiar comment. We'll take a look at that. I do not know why it was designed that way. Somebody must have had a reason, but we'll re-examine it and figure out how to redo it.
Okay. We're going to have some walks down memory lane here, Dave, I think, as we go through this. So it should be interesting.
John, so we're going to accept their petition, Matt?
Yeah, I think absolutely. We should and we can. The only question I just wanted to just reconfirm with the board, there was a question about lead agency. So do you want the town board or planning board? Or again, with town board, they can run tandem. I welcome your feedback on this.
Is that for me?
To the board and to you, John. If you want to chime in, feel free. Or Adam as well.
The only thing I would say is probably reach out with communication to the planning board, maybe through a visit from Dave and company, to see how they feel about it as well, or a written communication. That's the only thing I would say.
All right. I don't remember the last rezoning we did with you guys being lead agency. So, but I'm open. I'm open to considering that.
I mean, my thing is though, if we can ensure that there's the site approval can be done in tandem with the zoning approval, then I have no problem with
It was the last time.
Yeah, so I have no problem with the town board taking it. But again, that's a conversation that I welcome the input from the board. Or David, if you have a thought on that.
I want to jump in the mix for just for 30 seconds. Remember that unlike a typical rezoning where you're trying to figure this out, this one's been through full secret. There's
Exactly.
EIS. So this is a much easier, in my opinion, you will be the judge. The town will be the judge. This is a much easier environmental lift than a typical zoning, because all I'm doing is trying to breathe life back into the old zoning. So, however, on behalf of Matt Matthews and Whit Matthews, I would be remiss if I didn't say whatever's going to be the most efficient way is what we would like the town to try to work with us on. That's all.
Well, if John feels the planning it would be better if they were the lead agency in terms of being more efficient. I don't have a problem with that. What about the rest of the members?
I agree, Alice. I think that would probably be the more efficient way. So let planning take the lead on this one.
I agree.
Councilman Lachman?
I agree as well.
Councilman Patel? Councilman Patel, you're muted. Can you unmute, please? Thank you.
All right, I gotta say something to the Dave before I give something else to you. Mr. Steinman, only thing I see difference is your beard. I could not recognize your beard.
Yeah, he does look different.
Wonderful plan. It's been going on for a long time, and I think we work together with the town board to move forward, because many people are now going to be working from home, and this is a good place for them to find a place and do the work from home, and it'll be all services available online now, and they can live their either retirement or semi-retirement not too far away from the city.
Can I just ask John a question? And it concerns that amenity. If I were moving there, I wouldn't care about your little rec room or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, you might not. It's not.
Why do they have to do it?
I think, as I recall, and we'll have to verify it. As I recall, there is a requirement in this particular zone for a certain amount of community facilities. That's my recollection, and I think the old rezoning was proposing some type of community building. My recollection.
We'll take a look. And Alice, I completely agree with you. And John and I probably did have this debate and discussion 8 years ago. I'm sure we must have talked about it. When you're talking about a large community with a lot of seniors, I get it. There's not even an issue in my mind.
Yeah, different.
I'm working on 2 other active adult communities that are north of 175 units. Of course, there's going to be
different. That's different.
So,
think of Jefferson Village, right?
What's that again?
Think of Jefferson Village.
Yeah, exactly.
That has the big community building and some other stuff. So.
We'll let us look at it. We'll figure it out, and we understand we either have to satisfy it, navigate our way around it, ask for some kind of variance or waiver of the provision.
Are there other things instead of a rec room?
I've read all the documents. I don't remember anything about a rec room, quite honestly, but there was quite a bit about walking paths and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I could see those.
This was originally built as kind of a wellnessy community with walking paths and this meditation area. Whether that satisfied John for recreation, I just don't know.
John's not satisfied easily.
Yeah, I'll have to revisit
Alice will get him into mindfulness, I promise.
I'll have to revisit the former me, but with the beard that you're sporting, you seem much more relaxed. I'm sure it'll be much more fun this time.
Thank you, John.
That's until he has to get in front of you, John.
So Matt, what are we doing?
So I think the board's amenable to having the planning board act as lead agency, and so we can communicate that to the chairman of the planning board and the planning board members, and we can go from there.
Are we going to refer it out?
I have no problem. Let's refer it out. We'll make a motion to refer it out to all necessary agencies.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilman Roker, a second from Councilman Diana. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you all. It's great to be back in Yorktown. We will see you all.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Nice to
Thank
meet
you very
you.
much.
Good to see you, Jody.
Good to see you.
Thanks, everybody.
Appreciate it. Good night.
Stay well.
Night.
Bye-bye.
Okay, we're going to move on to Halleck's Mill Road. We're going to welcome our Highway Superintendent, Dave Paganelli. We're going to keep our planning team, John Tegeter and Robin Steinberg. We're also going to welcome, I believe we have Phil Greeley as well. Dr. Phil, good evening.
Good evening,
Phil.
everyone.
Phil.
Dr. Phil. How's
Hey,
everyone?
I know you're out there on the roads, so I don't want to.
No, I'm live in my office.
I know. I can see that. We appreciate it. How are the roads out there?
Roads are good. We're just now sort of in a holding pattern. Threw a few rounds of salt down. Snow's pretty much over. Just, trying to determine what we've got to do in terms of the freezing rain and ice that's coming. So we'll see.
Oh, wow.
All right. So everyone, just please be careful if you're at home watching, so you know what the current conditions are and what's to come. So this is a conversation on Halleck's Mill Road. We had a few weeks back. We had a constituent come to the town board, courtesy of the floor, requesting relief or an examination of Halleck's Mill Road. Speaking with our highway superintendent, Paganelli, we agreed that it was important to get a professional to come and take a look.
Yeah.
And we have a professional here, Dr. Phil Greeley. Dr. Greeley, how are you?
Good evening, everybody.
Thanks so much for joining us and helping us with this. So did you have a chance to take a look at Halleck's Mill Road? I know that you know the roads around here pretty well.
Yeah. So in terms of just, background information, I'm familiar with Halleck's Mill Road, familiar with the situation on cut-through traffic. We have, some historical data of what actually happens in terms of that cut-through traffic. In terms of peak hours, that traffic can be as many as a couple hundred vehicles per hour that are really cut-through traffic. So, when you had asked me to get on, we didn't talk, exactly what kind of scope, but, Halleck's Mill Road has issues at either end in terms of where it connects to the state highway system. That's a different issue, I think, in terms of what you're really focused on is dealing with, and in the past, I know the town has tried to implement things to help calm or reduce the amount of cut-through traffic. Back when the speed humps were put in years ago. But, there's a couple of items why traffic uses that. Number one is it's the shortest distance. If I'm going between those points of 202 and 118 and where Ridge Street is, it's probably a quarter mile plus shorter distance to travel that way and to avoid the triangle intersection. And as you go through the triangle intersection, especially along Sawmill River Road, you have the other items that affect that, turning movements in and out of the Triangle Shopping Center. So in addition to being a shorter distance, it's still a faster time. So clearly, based on the historical information, and Dave and I had talked about this, I guess maybe before the pandemic or when the pandemic first started. So we do have some historical information. We know that the cut-through volumes there are fairly significant. I think whatever the town would like us to look at, when you talk about a traffic study, there's all sorts of traffic studies. And one of the things in terms of that cut through traffic, if there were changes made to Halleck's Mill Road, that traffic is going to go somewhere else. Okay, it's either going to go through the triangle intersection. If you went to an extreme case of closing off a portion of Halleck's Mill Road, or evaluating different other what we call traffic calming measures. So really, if we're talking about trying to eliminate or reduce significantly the cut through traffic is one issue. The issue of the intersections at either end as to how they function, accident histories, and the intersection of Ridge Street and Halleck's Mill and Sawmill River Road is a difficult intersection. It has been for a long time. And really, anything that gets done here is going to have, as they say, an action has a reaction somewhere. Okay. And on the bigger picture, it's a state highway that people are bypassing, and the state, should have some ownership here. But as typical, they say they have no money. They have no plans. They don't do planning anymore. The last planning attempt at this was when Councilman Roker and others, when there was a proposal for the redevelopment of Roma, there was some planning done. DOT started to become part of that, but they basically said, look, we have no money, so we can't help you.
As soon as we got there.
So with that kind of as a background, yes, there's a lot of cut through traffic. There's, so you have to tell me what issues that you really would like us to weigh in on. Is it speed control? Is it eliminating traffic? We have to make sure we don't affect bus routes. And so a traffic study, people say, oh, we need a traffic study. Well, the gamut of a traffic study is pretty wide.
And Dave, if you want to chime in here, but I think the impetus was the cut through traffic, but also that intersection at 35 and Ridge Street, right?
Correct. I think the major concern was cut through traffic.
What are you going to do with cut through traffic? It's a road.
Well, it is a road, but it's a road being used by. I went out there and sat there for hours measuring the cars that came by, and 78% of them were from Connecticut. So,
I know that, but what are you going to say? Connecticut, you can't go down there?
Well, do the people on that road need to suffer because of that, or do we have to wait till somebody's child gets hit?
You're getting huffy with me. That's not the point of what I'm saying. Legally, what legal tools do you have to tell any car they cannot be on a road?
You don't have that. What you have is, that's why we have traffic consultant. You could make it a one-way, cut the traffic by 60% instantly.
Yes, exactly.
That's what. You're 100% correct. You cannot tell people they cannot go.
Dave, not to interrupt you, but in terms of parameters, and we can outline some options. And for example, the supervisor mentioned the intersection of Ridge Street and Halleck's Mill and Sawmill River Road. One of the things there is the lack of a turning lane that causes problems.
Yeah.
The proximity of Ridge Street and Halleck's Mill Road in terms of conflicting movements. So there's things that could be done there to improve the safety of that operation. Everything costs money, especially when it comes to a state highway. And for example, one thing that could possibly be done there, it may require some right of way, but that's an ideal location for considering a roundabout. Okay, as you're coming into town, it's something the state embraces, but again, they don't have money, but they like that idea. The intersection is pretty wide, so that's something that the town could look at in terms of what are actual right of ways to fit that in. A typical roundabout needs a a radius of about 60 or a diameter of 120 minimum to accommodate truck traffic, but that would help some of the safety issues at that intersection. In terms of cut-through traffic, if you make the roadway entirely one way, then you're going to force people, and I don't recall the exact number of homes, but say there's about 40 homes in that neighborhood in round numbers. I'm just going to say along Halleck's Mill Road and maybe some of the side areas.
Right.
So if you were to make it a one-way, then what is the effect on Hamlin Street? And, so there's, as I said, there's always, it's like physics, okay? An action has a reaction, okay? So, and then which way do you make it one way? The cut through is in both directions, depending on the time of day.
Yeah.
It's more predominant, it seems, from the historical data coming from the, I'll call it the east on 35, heading over towards the Baldwin Road direction. And that's because it's, an easier right turn and a quick left. But they're at the other end, coming off of the 35-202 compound side, problem there is left turns off of the roadway because there's no left turn lane. You would want to look at accident histories at both locations to just see that what you're doing doesn't create some other problem. But a one-way roadway, if it was done in its entirety, requires a pretty good amount of diversions to occur of the local traffic. It would eliminate the cut through, but then where does your cut through go? You put more of it through the triangle intersection in the middle of town, which has its own congestion problems. If there was no congestion problem there, then that's where people would filter to. If you made Halleck's Mill one way, you may find that people will go up Ridge Street and go on to Elizabeth or one of the other roads to get as a bypass. So you really have to be careful in terms of the extent of what any one-way system would be. However, there are other options in terms of, so for example, you could make Halleck's Mill two-way up to a certain point so that the people in most of the neighborhood could get to their homes either way. So they don't have to go all the way around to circle back in. And then at select points, say, for example, as you get further down near Laurel Court, that intersection, you could make sections of it one way only in that area. So that could control your cut-through traffic and not totally divert the neighborhood traffic.
Bill, I think, interrupt. If we put any traffic onto Laurel, it's naturally going to find its way down McBride and out to Hamlin.
Absolutely. So what you would have to do is have controls there. But what you could do is, let's say, and I'm just throwing this out because as I just looked at an aerial a few minutes ago, I'm saying, let's say you made the section from Laurel Road one way towards 202-35 and the other direction one way towards Baldwin Road direction, I'll call it, the Crampon direction, okay? And then what you could do is also not allow traffic coming from the Connecticut direction, I'll call it, because you could now not have any traffic that would be heading over towards the Baldwin Road area. So you could do partial one-ways and not have as much a diversion of the neighborhood traffic. But
that makes perfectly good sense.
But that couple of hundred cars that you're getting off the local town road have to be absorbed somewhere. So if there was capacity at the triangle intersection, that would be absorbed faster there. In one direction, there is a little bit more capacity because you have that channelized right.
Yes.
In the other direction, there's a lot less capacity because traffic already backs up, making the left at the signal to head towards Connecticut. So I think if you're going to look at these options, and we can use some of this historical data and lay out some of the effects of the options, because you really want to look at the whole picture. There are also maybe some other traffic calming things that could be done to make it more difficult for people to come through the area, but then the neighborhood has to deal with those also. So, you have, I think, a couple of speed humps that are in there for the length of that roadway. If this was, a true speed hump or speed table design, you would probably have 4 for that distance that you're talking about.
We have 3, yeah.
So you have 3, you would have at least 4 with the distance that's involved. So, but again, that's a whole different question of traffic calming to divert traffic. In this case, the time savings of the shorter distance and the fact that the alternate routes, that traffic still has to be served. So
I know,
the
but
alternate routes
my
have
concern
constraints.
is they're avoiding a controlled, safe intersection.
Right.
I'm not more concerned about safety and the traffic coming through Alex Mills than I am about people waiting at the 35 Commerce intersection. And I understand what you're saying 100%. Traffic backs up, all the way down Commerce Street, particularly at rush hours. But I like your idea very much of 2 one-ways so as not to negatively impact the residents that live there that are asking for our help.
And also you want to make sure, as you pointed out, you don't have traffic now diverting onto Hamlin Street. So,
right.
So there are things that can be done. I think, from the town's perspective, even though the state is saying they have no money, they have nothing here, to try to get them to do whatever can be done at that intersection. The signal is actually operating fairly efficiently. Years ago, when the town added the right turn lane in front of the old Cablevision, I'll call it, building there, that the town took that on. The state ended up, almost embarrassed that they provided the replacement signal poles. But other than that, they really haven't done anything for the town in terms of infrastructure improvement. So
Correct.
I think
and have to take into consideration any future developments with the mini master plan with respect to the building, Mr. DeVito's project, the Wyant, and the
Yes.
Roma.
Yeah. So in terms of the Wyant project, there was land dedication because part of the ability to improve at least that leg of the intersection, as part of the review with the planning board, that project was donating land to the state of New York. That process is still ongoing, actually, to facilitate future widenings. Similarly with the Roma project, which I don't know where that stands. I haven't heard anything on that in quite some time, probably over a year. But their project was also dedicating significant land to the state in order to accommodate some improvements. But on a master plan basis, even projects of that magnitude, the state really needs to be part of it. So I know we had developed some concepts. Councilman Roker was familiar with that, and John Tegeter also. So those are more of the longer term plans that I think the town should petition the state on. And then in terms of Halleck's Mill, the types of modification that could be done to eliminate some of this cut through traffic, you want it to be absorbed on the state highway system, not the town highway system. That's the bottom line.
No, I think just off the top of your head, the one way, the pivot point being Laurel Court, one way out to Ridge and one way up to Route 202, that eliminates all that cut through traffic, all of it.
And one thing that the town could do, we've done this in some other locations. what I call a trial basis. Okay. Now, in this particular case, it's a little bit more complicated. In other municipalities, we've done temporary closures, evaluated how the diversions were absorbed. In this particular case, it might be a little bit more complicated, but it's something that if there were concerns and you really wanted to see what the effect of it was, you could do it on a temporary basis.
Makes
So I'll
sense.
throw that out as something you may want to also consider. But, at this point, I know the background in terms of traffic and cut through and where people are generally going. I think, Dave, you have a good handle on it from being out there and watching it. You're right on mark with that. But, you may want to think about doing some type of a temporary, and then you can evaluate it to see how it's functioning before you make it permanent.
I agree.
So, Dr. Greeley, from your standpoint, what are the next steps that you think that either the board or the highway department should take if we wanted to explore the temporary solutions that you proposed?
Well, I think we could do very simply take the historical data, pull that together, compile some of the information for the state highway that we could give to the town to get that moving forward, and then look at these alternatives, like this one-way alternative that I mentioned. It may seem at first a little drastic, but by not making the entire roadway one way, you're preserving the neighborhood. So it's almost like you ended up putting two cul-de-sacs that are not connected except for emergency traffic to a certain extent, to make it very simplistic. But you want to look at what the diversions would be. So we could put together some numbers in terms of volumes, some very rough plans that would show where you would sign it, how you would control it, how you would do it even on a temporary basis, and then I think you would take it from there.
Great.
Sounds great.
Any questions from the town board?
I'll tell you, we did the stop signs on East Main, Phil, and I'll tell you,
And Stony Street.
and Stony, they've been very well received, and I think that Dave, once again, thank you and your guys. I think we got a little grumbling at first, but all in all, I think it's a great preemptive step to the traffic light at that location. To get people slowing down, realize there's going to be something coming in the near future. So this may be a valuable alternative for that particular roadway.
I like the idea of a temporary trial. I'd love to get some input. From the residents on the street there, going into it, just so they were on board and know what we're looking at in case they're missing this meeting or subsequent.
Right.
But
what we normally
the other thing you may want to pull together is the accident history at either end of Halleck's Mill, as well as any accident history along Halleck's Mill Road, because you want to take that into consideration as you make your decisions on this. And clearly, at either intersection with the state highways, I'm sure there is accident history at both locations. You may want to get a 3 or 5 year history, have that compiled. We can take a look at it with you. But that's something the town could pull together.
Okay.
So traditionally, when, should you come back, as this should be your preliminary recommendation to temporarily try something like this, traditionally what we would do as when someone requests speed bumps on their road, we go out, we put a letter in everybody's mailbox and say, one of your residents has requested speed bumps. Please let us know your feelings with respect to this. And I think that might give us a good jumping off point to see if it would be something that would be well received. And I would be remiss if I didn't, thank Alice, because last year you were insisted on putting $10,000 into a line to specifically deal with this. And unfortunately, we never got around to it.
No.
So, but at least now it's getting,
I'm glad.
Yep. better, I guess it falls under the better late than never plan.
Yeah, we knew Dr. Phil would come through.
Yep.
And Dave, your point, just, your point as any of these studies that we do, and when you talk about traffic calming, which this is really a type of traffic calming, the public input is very important to make sure everybody's on board, because my experience, and I've been doing this a long time, is you have people that are in favor of things and people are opposed. Sometimes you get the majority that will come to a consensus, but I think you want to at least have it out there and the benefits, and that would be something we would outline, with you, the benefits and the cons.
Right.
They're always both. But really, go full disclosure. And I think the opportunity to do this on a temporary basis is important, because then you see how it functions.
I have a question for Dave.
I'm sorry, everyone just hold on one second. I got Councilman Patel.
I have a question for Dave and Dr. Phelps. Is there any number available how much traffic has increased in the last 5 years? On a main road and Halleck's Mill Road, because a long time ago I heard from Dr. Phelps, when the Lowe's area was being studied, the traffic. Now the traffic has increased much more. So Dave, do we have any number passing through the town as well as crossing the Halleck's Mill Road?
I believe there is historical data available. I would have to track it down. And I'm sure Dr. Phil would agree that the state may very well have historical data. The police department at some point might have gone out there. Sometimes the county comes up and runs traffic counts on our roads. So yeah, I think that we could certainly find out, what the traffic was perhaps 10 years ago or whenever the last, opportunity there was for a traffic study.
When I moved in on the Willow Street in 1979, the first year, father and a son died on a Thanksgiving road over there. And it took about 5 years for me to Henry Barnett to put a flashing light after another 4 people died. And altogether, before I became a councilman, 12 people died in 2 accidents in one day, and I had show the picture. Every week I write to the Department of Transportation, and I send a picture of the dead people as well as the news article just to show them, not to give it to anybody else. And I still have the report, and then they were able to resurface the area, and then again they put they change the slope. It's like nobody has died since then. So this was nobody in the town, the police department, nobody this thing. And I'll show you share some picture. Traffic has gone so much because it backs up all the way to the Evergreen Street, all the way sometimes. And so I don't know, the DOT don't help it, then what am I going to do? So your temporary solution is very welcome, really. That will help something,
Councilman Lachman, you wanted to make a point?
I was just going to say that I think you get a little more buy-in from the neighbors if they know you're trying it and they could get to see.
I agree.
Yeah, that's good.
So then, Dr. Greeley, can we ask you to come back with a more developed plan after you pull the historical data that you have together? And then what we can do is, Dave, if once we have that, maybe we can put a letter together to those residents explaining what we'd like to propose, ask for their feedback, and then we can go from there.
Right. We can glean some of that information from Dr. Phil, the pros and the cons, like as he said. We don't want to. That's when we do, people request speed bumps and we tell them, well, you're going to be okay in the middle of the night when a truck comes across it and you're trying to sleep. Right. There are the pros and the cons. So, but yeah, that would work for you. Great.
We will put together a plan. Dave, I'll be in touch because we may want to go out and look at where we would do this one way once I develop the plan. Get your input so that we're on the same page. In the meantime, I'll also get the data that the state has on the state highway system historically. Now, some of that are just projections from the state, Councilman Patel. They don't have data every year, So they extrapolate it, but we can pull that together so you can see what the historical volumes have been on the state highway system. To just give some history there. And then we have some of the historical data of actual turning movements that occur especially at Ridge Street and Halleck's Mill End, which that's where the cut through numbers really can be seen cleanly.
Perfect. Great.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we appreciate the help. Diana, do we need a resolution for Dr. Phil at this point?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure that we were dotting the I's and crossing the T's. Dr. Greeley, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you,
Really
Dr.
Good to see everybody.
Dave, do you
have a great night?
Dave, do you want to just jump ahead real quick while we have you?
Yeah, I was going to ask if that was a possibility.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Okay.
Good night.
Great
Good
job,
night now.
Robin. Thank you.
Robin. Currently, we have 4,500 yards of trees up at the recycling yard at 2200 Greenwood Street. We had a conference call with FEMA last week, and they made us aware of the fact that there could be some reimbursement. And Pat told me to make sure I made this very clear, and there are no guarantees. But it seemed to me, in speaking to the gentleman, that they were pretty amenable to a possible FEMA reimbursement to eliminate those trees that came about as a result of Isaias back in August. I've got what I'm looking for. When we spoke to FEMA, they were pretty adamant about not doing anything time and material. They said if you wanted to, maximize your opportunity for, reimbursement, get a fixed price, period. Price to take care of the 4,500 yards. And so I reached out a little bit just to, get a take of what it might be. And the overall perception is it'll be somewhere between $40,000 and $45,000. All right, to eliminate that material. First question you're going to ask is, well, can we eliminate it with our beast? Unfortunately, these were big trees beyond the capability of our beast. It would take months to cut them up into bite-sized pieces. So what I'm asking permission for is to go out to bid, step one. Once we've received the bids, determine we got to get rid of the wood no matter what. So the question becomes, yes, I have the money in my fund balance to cover it because, of course, that's always the first. Where's the money coming from?
I was going to ask you that.
So, listen, I've heard where's the money coming from so many times. I don't know what to say anymore. But fortunately, we're okay fund balance wise. So we have to do it. If we have an opportunity for some FEMA reimbursement, I think this is as good a time as any. So
makes sense.
I agree.
Makes sense. I've got no issues. Any questions on this for Dave?
Motion.
We have a motion from Councilwoman Roker to go out to bid for the removal of logs. We have a second. Councilman Lachterman. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you very much, and thank you so much for letting me sneak in. I'm going to go out and check the roads.
Go, Dave. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good night.
All right, then last issue that we're going to be dealing with tonight is a playground safety assessment. We're welcoming our Parks and Rec team, welcoming Jim Moderano, our Parks and Rec superintendent, Matt Talbert, chair of the Parks and Rec Commission, Dan the Man, the assistant superintendent for Parks and Rec, and Scott Ferreira, who is one of our staffers for the Parks and Rec department, and someone who's going to be doing a lot of work around town in the next couple of weeks. So, Jimmy, why don't you lead off for us and just brief the board as to the situation we're dealing with here and how we're planning on moving forward.
Matt, thanks for having us on. Really appreciate it. So about a year ago, we had a discussion, you and I, about what we could do a better job with playground safety. We hadn't had a playground audit for many, many years, if at all, with the playgrounds that had been developed around town. We went out and got a quote for an audit of all of our playgrounds, about $10,000 to do it annually And then that doesn't even include the monthly cost that it would take to check on these playgrounds. So we had the better idea of actually getting one of our own staff employees certified through the NRPA. That's the national governing body for Parks and Recreation, and get a CPSI certification, Certified Playground Safety Inspector certification. So we have since done that. Scott Ferreira was certified in December.
Congratulations, Scott.
Thank you, guys.
Were you volunteered?
He did.
No,
He did
he
raise his
volunteered
hand.
for it, didn't he? Didn't you raise your hand, Scott?
I did. He absolutely did, and we're very, very grateful for it. It's a certification that lasts for 3 years, and certainly will be very useful for the town. I've already gotten an education on playground safety through him in the first couple of months of him having this. So we got together and came up with a multi-phased plan to go through our playgrounds, and right now we're looking at all of our Miracle recreation playground equipment playgrounds. There's 7 of them in town, and what we're really looking for are 3 different priority levels. Priority level 1 with high levels of safety concerns that has entanglement and entrapment issues, and any playground that we see with those, we unfortunately have to shut down until that's fixed. A level 2 priority, which is some slight structural issues that could lead into bigger issues, and a priority 3 that's kind of minor that we can fix over a period of time. Unfortunately, a lot of our playgrounds, at least the Miracle ones, are a bit aged. Railroad was built in 98, York Hill in 97, Sparkle in 99, and Chelsea all the way back in 91. Those 4, unfortunately, had priority 1 issues. So we have since closed them about a week ago or so. Junior Lake, Foxton, and Willow, our other 3 playgrounds through Miracle, are in relatively good standing, some level 3, priority 3 issues. But those 4 that I mentioned, Railroad, York Hill, and Sparkle, and Chelsea, are definitely level 1 priority issues. So Scott had come up with a plan on fixing these issues, and we're in the midst of getting them up to a safety protocol. We're hoping that Railroad will reopen in early February. Sparkle Lake will reopen in late February. York Hill in mid-March. And unfortunately, Chelsea is going to be complete decommission. The parts that we had Miracle come in and give us a quote on some of these fixes. And unfortunately, the Chelsea playground, they no longer make the parts for it. It's that old. Usually, these playgrounds last for about 20 years or so. At the 30-year mark, which we're at in Chelsea, it's time. So we do have a plan in place to get away from those priority 1 issues, but there's certainly some priority 2 issues with these playgrounds and 3s. So, and we still have another 9 playgrounds to look at. So I'm kind of just wanted to inform the board that this is what we're doing. This is the path forward, and certainly there's more to go with this path. Also, with everything being said, you guys know that I've had issues with parks employees and the lack thereof, and we're losing one of our best guys now that's going to be focused on this project, and we're already short a laborer and another treatment. So certainly some staffing issues that will be because of this going forward as well that I need to bring up.
Scott,
all right.
Give us a quick rundown when I just want to make sure people understand level 1, level 2, level 3.
Yep. So
Go ahead, please.
So level 1 priorities, those are ones that are more like head entrapments. This is where a child's body can fit through an opening, but their head cannot. So the older playgrounds weren't built with those priorities in mind. Back in 98. The standards changed in 2008. That's the new set of standards. So those older playgrounds just weren't built with those in mind. Our 98 ones have more of that built in than the one at Chelsea. The one at Chelsea has 0 regard to head entrapments. Priority 2s are entanglements. These are bolts, S hooks things of, the S hooks that connect the swings on playgrounds. Those can grab a child's shirt, and it can cause them to be choked. Those are the priority 2s and 1s. Priority 3s more get into chipping paint, rust, things that children cut their fingers on, things of that nature. That stuff, it does have to be fixed, but it doesn't mean that a child's going to lose a limb or ultimately, die from an injury.
If they're on the playground.
What was that?
A level 3 does not indicate that it's a dangerous situation.
No,
high level dangerous situation on the playground.
It's not a high level. No, it should be addressed in due time.
Right.
But it's not one that causes the playground to be shut down.
Right. Jimmy, talk to me about Chelsea. When people hear decommission, so we're going to have to take apart the Chelsea playground.
Correct. So we'll have to essentially demo that playground in the short term, and then start looking at new appropriate replacements for a new playground. So that's something that I'll have to discuss with the commission, which I haven't yet in a formal matter. Commissioners have been informed of this, but we have not sat in a meeting and discussed.
So from what we know, this has been an issue for quite some time, but this is finally a plan that we're putting in place.
Yeah.
Train one of our employees and tackle it head on, right?
Yeah, I mean, the plan going forward is creating a maintenance schedule and really chipping away. One of the things that the person from Miracle said is, look, if you kind of had $1,000 fix year after year on these playgrounds and had more of a schedule, you kind of wouldn't be in the situation you're in now. So that's what I plan on doing for the years to come, hopefully with you here by our side. And we can kind of do this kind of the smartest way financially possible and not have to take on too much at once.
Yeah, I think it's a balance of number one, we got to make sure that if our kids are playing on these playgrounds, that they're safe. Obviously, I can tell you firsthand, from my little kids, they love going to the playground. So we need to make sure that they're safe. That's got to be the priority. And then number two, of course, just making sure we put ourselves, to your point, Jimmy, on a smart financial plan moving forward, so that it's not a big hit.
We need to be proactive, not reactive, and it's kind of been the opposite of the past few years.
Perfectly put.
One of the things I told Jimmy earlier was that Brian Slavin, I love to look at his budget, because every year he replaced equipment in a different playground. And once you guys get to a point, first of all, I'm so happy that you're now the person who's going to be looking at everything. But in your capital plan, every year, you need to put that, because it is infrastructure.
Agreed. Councilman Patel, you had a question?
Me, can I speak to you? Okay, let me just say, this is the best thing we can do for the kids, But are we supposed to, when somebody goes to their ball field or any, park, whoever employee goes to do grass work cutting, they cannot go and check it out, the equipment. But somebody should be going in at least bi-weekly or bi-weekly, especially in the season, So is it going to be a separate person, new percent or something?
Scott Ferreira right here. Scott Ferreira's been trained to be able to go inspect the playgrounds. We got him trained.
Scott, can you want to talk on that actually a little bit about what would be going on yearly, monthly, weekly?
Absolutely. So we're going to have to work out a plan that puts the playgrounds into a priority list, and then go off of that list of how often the playgrounds get looked at. So places with heavy traffic, heavy vandalism accounts, stuff of that nature, they'll get looked at more than, say, pocket parks that don't get used as much. So we have to make a distinguishment which playgrounds get looked at weekly, bi-weekly, monthly. And then I printed out training rosters. Say if we get a part-time employee to do, some sort of garbage checks or anything of that nature, I can train the part-time employee to look at your basic stuff. Check the swing bolts, check, very, very basic stuff. They're not there to do an audit. They're not there to do, an inspection. They're just there to look for vandalism, missing mulch, loose structures. I can train them, and it goes into the playground file as they were trained. They could fill out a checklist. They sign the checklist, and that goes into the file as well for that day. So there's a lot of checks and balances with this, with how the system is set up. So we could do that. We could do that easily.
That's great.
How about the ground itself? Pothole and rocks and like that. People always throw something. So if there is a hole, then who maintains that one? Is it the grass cutting people or any group? Because that's also very important. If somebody falls on a hole,
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, and that's kind of why we're doing this, right? So that would be reported to us, and then if it's a bigger fix, then we would send a team out there to fix it. And if it's a small fix that that person can fix on location, he would definitely go ahead and just do that. But like I said before, it certainly will have an effect on our ability to do other things around town as well, because we are losing some more manpower to this initiative.
Right, but we're also losing it to make sure that the playgrounds are safe for the
Which
kids.
is important, yeah.
The other reason I thought it was really important for us to bring this forward is because I've seen that you've already roped off some of the playgrounds, and so I want to make sure that residents understand that if they're seeing a playground like over at York Hill that we visited on, was it Friday? That the reason that it's right now got the fence up around it is because it's been deemed unsafe because of the level 1 audit that it received, and so we have to fix it. And so we do also have a plan to fix it. So I want the residents to be rest assured about that. And we are committed to doing this because, again, we will not risk the safety of our kids at our playgrounds, especially when we now have the personnel who can go assess them and tell us what we need to do to make sure that it's a safe experience at every playground for our kids. So I really do appreciate, Scott, your help here, and Jimmy, your leadership. Mr. Talbert from the commission, anything you'd like to bring forward?
Well, as we were speaking, you and I, the biggest problem we're going to have is the finances on this. We need Jim doesn't have it in his budget, and we're going to need to reach out, hopefully, to the town board and see if we can finance this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Jimmy and I had a conversation about there's a couple of things that he can start with, but I think that board obviously is going to recognize the fact that we don't have a choice, and it's not even a choice because we're talking about safety for our kids. So, we will obviously work collaboratively in an effort to make sure that whatever needs to get done to make sure the children are protected when on our playgrounds, we're gonna make sure it gets taken care of.
Perfect.
So can I just say there are two kinds of safety? If somebody get hurt, they're gonna sue us too, right? So it's double.
Right, exactly.
Sure.
Right, so that's why we've got to do whatever we've got to do.
There's a legal obligation, but there's also a moral obligation to make sure that, once again, children of our community have safe places to enjoy. Councilman Diana or Councilman Lachterman, any comments?
Just one, Matt, that I think that and Jimmy and crew, may we have some temporary signs made up and actually mount them on the either fences or fence posts that are there that warn people that the park is closed. Do not, due to safety reasons, keep out.
We have done that.
You've done it already. Okay.
Yeah, when I went over there on Friday with Scott and Jim and Matt, we did it. We did do that for the signs.
Okay.
But I also want to make sure again that people understand because they're neighborhood parks. I mean, I have one by my house too. If they see them closed off, I want them to understand why it's closed off, number one. But two, that there's also a plan to make sure that we reopen them. So it's great to hear. I want to just make sure we're right. Railroad's early February. Sparkle is late February, Jimmy?
Yep.
York Hill is mid-March.
Yep.
Kelsey's a different conversation because we need to decommission and full replace.
That is fully correct.
And you put all of this on your website?
Yes, I think that's a great idea.
We have not put it on the website yet, but certainly something we could look at.
I think you should.
I think you should quickly.
I agree. I think that's a good idea. And so, Jimmy, that's something that you and I can work on tomorrow with the staff to make sure that he gets it up there. Just to make sure. Again, I just want to make sure residents understand what's happening here, and why it's happening, and that there's a plan to address it. Any other questions or comments from the board or from our staff?
Yes, I have one comment. Some time ago, during the summer or maybe earlier part of in the spring, there was some railing was really damaged at the Granite Knoll ball field. Was there anybody who got caught, or was it fixed it up? Because there was quite a bit damage. You know, they banned the fences and like that.
Mr. Talbert, I know you're up there often. Are you?
I am up there often, and our surveillance cameras have helped us a lot with watching over the park. No, we did not catch the people. We caught someone that had damaged some goals. That was handled. I'm not sure if we got restitution on that yet. As far as the fences go, no, we have not. We did not have a clear view of who the children were that were damaging the fences. A lot of times we have to use the license plate to bring it back to where they're from. Yeah. So it's kind of hard because we don't have someone up there all the time. But we're managing with what we have.
Jimmy, do you know, a random question, and if you don't know, I don't mean to put you on the spot. Do you know the park up on Ivy off of Stony Street? Do you know what company that is? Is that that's not Miracle, is it?
I don't believe so. Scott, do you know that one offhand?
Scott, do you know that one?
Not offhand. I know it's not Miracle and it's not Landscape Structures. Okay. We have, I believe, 4 different manufacturers, and it's one of those last two.
I just remember I met residents about a year and a half ago up there about that one particular park. So I'm interested to hear, from Scott, your standpoint, what the assessment is on the safety features up there.
Will do. Yeah, we went there quick with the woman from Miracle, but she distinguished that it wasn't hers, so we kind of just moved on quickly. I didn't get a chance to even take a look at it. So when I'm there, for sure.
I know Diana knows that park well. He's right across the street.
Yeah, we about 2, maybe 3 years ago. There was actually a revamp done in there where they went and cleaned everything up, put new mulch, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know what's been done up there since then.
Okay. Great.
I had gone, Matt, when you were with Jim, I was with you when we were talking about this. It all started over by Jack DeVito Veterans Memorial Field, where we were looking at some of the repairs that were needed there. And I'm glad that Scott was able to step up and do this, because I know it's been a priority to try to get it done efficiently, and the best possible way for the town. And I think that having someone that's trained in it, and then also Scott, your plan to do the basic training, I hope will also help you to identify someone who could take the similar training down the line, and have this something we perpetuate, and have a team of people who understand it, so they can really help make sure that we don't fall into this issue down the line again.
Jimmy, do you want money tonight?
Not Matt's gonna not good to hear. But I think for right now I'm okay, but I will be back shortly because we just haven't worked out all of the financials yet on this. Okay. And I think priority 3 and up we should really take care of and kind of nip this thing in the bud.
I agree.
But gotta tackle it head on, man. I mean, people right now are out there using our parks and using our playgrounds, especially in the world of COVID.
Yeah, exactly.
And now's the time in winter to kind of get these fixes before things really start to heat up.
Yep.
So I will be back quite soon, but I just wanted to get the word out as soon as possible on this subject matter. But I will be back asking at some point soon because we do need to get all the quotes in line.
Right. I'd like to see a budget come back with especially the decommission and replacement of Chelsea, and let's get a budget so we understand what the needs are, and we can work with our finance department and our commission and the board to make sure that you get what you need to get this done.
The fixes are going to be more concrete price-wise, Matt, with the Railroad, York Hill, and Sparkle versus Chelsea, because since it's a complete restart, it's literally taking a piece of equipment that we want that fits the space best. Yeah. And that price range could range from $15,000 an easy in one of the cheaper units versus $50,000 for some sort of Ninja Warrior type course. We want something more intricate. So it depends on what the thirst is for something more high tech versus not.
Right. So let's get some options, and we'll have you come back to the board so we can continue this conversation.
Great.
You all.
Okay. Anything
Thank
else,
you.
Mr. Talbert? You
What-
good?
No, what do you, how do you want us to, I know we've discussed this, but, right now Scott has closed down the 7 Miracle Parks. We
Yep.
have nine other parks that we have to do, but Scott's also in the midst of trying to reopen these parks, so he can't go on and continue doing the inspections and also be working on reopening the parks. We can't get a total budget together until we know what those 9 additional parks are. And the other issue that we could possibly run into is on some of these parts, Jim, that we have to order, we were looking at a 4 to 6 week lead time. So we're going to have to come back sooner than later and at least get the, we have estimates right now. If you take out Chelsea, you're up in the $25,000-$30,000 range.
Yep.
I figured. Yeah, I figured. I mean, that doesn't surprise me. I expect it to be obviously,
These are old. This is old. These are old.
98.
Old.
Yeah, 98. I mean, a lot of them look good, but they're from 1998.
Right.
So if we, like you said, if we were doing what Brian was doing for years and replacing a piece here and there, we wouldn't be caught like this.
Yeah.
Yep.
So now we are. So if you want to authorize $25,000 right now, that'd be good.
I'm sure that it would be.
It would certainly be spent tomorrow if that was the case. But
Jimmy's got to show us some paper.
Well, we have the paper.
You got to see some numbers.
I don't have it.
I would also say I understand that you got to, once we have it, we can move on it fast. I work 7 days a week, so you don't have to worry about trying to track me down. I'm here.
No, I think it's a matter of getting a resolution down on paper, but showing you guys all the quotes and things needed in real time throughout the week or two to come. But really, the most important thing today was just kind of notifying you guys and the public that this is a thing and a reality and something that we're attacking head on.
Yeah.
All right, guys. The last comment from me: the COVID is not going to go away. It's before you start opening up your park. So let the people also know that it's not going to be just open. If you have a power in our hand, we can stop the COVID the day before the park opens. So let them know if something comes up, so they don't make too much noise.
Okay.
Yep.
Excellent. All right, Jimmy. So you're gonna get back to us, and we'll go from there, and we'll get you back to the town board meeting ASAP, so this way we can authorize whatever we have to authorize to put the plan together.
See you next week.
All right.
Great.
Yep.
Yep.
Scott, great job.
Thanks for hearing us out. We appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank
Keep up the
you.
great work. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Dan.
Good night, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Okay, so we're going to end with resolutions. We'll take them all together. From personnel, we're going to accept the retirement of Don Masuda, effective Friday, January 29th, 2021, and thank him for his years of service to the town of Yorktown.
That one's with regrets. He's a great guy.
He really is.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we're going to authorize the supervisor to enter an agreement with Weston and Sampson. And we're going to authorize the comptroller to release the escrow deposit for driveway permit number DR 1231.
No move.
Second.
The motion from Councilman.
Aye.
Second from Councilman.
Aye.
All in,
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Then we will say goodnight and make a motion to
No
adjourn
move.
tonight's meeting.
Second.
Aye. Councilwoman Roker. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Stay
Good night.
safe.
Aye.
Good night, ladies and gentlemen.
Great night.
Night, Joel.